Welcome back to DES Trucks. In today's video, I want to talk about how to lift the front end of your truck. This is a question that I've got quite a bit on the channel. Jacking up the front end, how do you do it? What's the best practice? And how do you position everything? Because I think one of the biggest issues that people have is when they're jacking up their front end, they can't seem to place the jack stands and get everything lifted up. So we're going to take our floor jack and I'll show you guys how I lift up the front end so that you can service the tires and whatever else, the brakes maybe on the front end. You want to do it in a manner that's safe and the vehicle's not going to fall down on you. So first and foremost, to do that, keep in mind how heavy these trucks are. This is a 10,000 pound truck with, you put a couple things in it, it's 10,000 pounds. It weighs like 500 pounds or something, and you put like some mods on it, and I don't know, before you know it, you're getting close to that 10,000 pound mark. So make sure that your floor jack can lift enough to be able to lift a heavy truck. You don't want to get the smallest, weakest floor jack. Although this one's pretty old, it does have a 4-ton rating on it, so it can handle the front end and stuff. But when you're lifting the front end, even this 4-ton jack does seem to be a little bit stressed out in lifting this front end. It does it, but you got to be careful. If you're not on it just right, it can feel like it's tipping, and you don't want to do that. Now, the reason this front end is difficult to lift up is because you don't want to break your axle. A lot of people won't want to lift up their front end and position a jack right on the center of that axle tube. Although I've done it, I can't recommend it. I've taken that risk and done it. But if you lift up directly on the center diff, then it gets dicey. The truck feels like it's want to tip over, and the floor jack starts to like balance on one wheel. So not the best situation if you're lifting on just the center diff. So how is it that you can position a jack stand close to the, how do you position everything in order to get this truck in the air and place your jack stands without doing something sketchy? So I've got my floor jack in position here as well as my jack stands. Another thing to consider is make sure the jack stands are heavy duty enough to carry the weight of a diesel truck. They're heavy. This is a 6-ton jack stand, and it has a pin that actually goes through it. I know there's been some shifty jack stands on the market. Over here we have a smaller jack stand that you probably wouldn't want to trust with this type of a load. This is just an old stand I've had it forever. You wouldn't trust that for a big truck like this. So anyway, let's go up under here and figure this out. So I've got my jack stand position, or my floor jack, positioned here on the axle tube, but I'm closer to the passenger side. So my goal here is to only lift one side of the truck at a time. Like I've said though, I've lifted the full front end with this floor jack by just going right in the middle of this tube, right in the center of the truck, and it's gone up, no issues, and nothing's broken. But this is a lot closer to the radius arm where it mounts, and it's a lot closer to the spring, so it puts I would think less stress on the actual axle. But I'm actually off of the ground already. One thing to note when you're lifting heavy with the floor jack is you want to make sure that your caster wheels on your floor jack are pointing in the right direction, that the floor jack's going to roll as it goes up. It wants to pull itself forward, and you don't want to have the caster wheels having to make that turn. So the floor jack is rolling forward and the caster wheels are already pointing in the right orientation. So as the truck goes up, this jack can roll forward toward the truck, so that instead of the truck sliding off of the jack rolls up along the ground as it cranks up. Let's see if it's rolling now. I don't know. But if it doesn't roll and advance forward, then it will slide off of the truck. I don't know if this one's rolling, but I can tell by jacking this truck up that it's just real heavy. You can feel it. So let's go ahead and try to position this jack stand in place. There's a big girl. So I gotta get around here. And I gotta go up a little more for where I'm set. I guess that's a good height or whatever. And when you're jacking, you wanna watch it. Keep an eye on it. If your floor jack doesn't roll across the ground, you will see that something's gotta roll. Either a truck's gonna come forward toward me, or the axle is gonna slip off the jack. It might scooch a little. And another thing to watch out for when you're jacking up the truck, as you can see, we're getting pretty high off the ground. You wanna make sure that this floor jack is not tipping. You'll notice that before it tips over completely and drops your load, one of the wheels will come off of the ground. This wheel should have less pressure on it. Look at that, this wheel's got hardly any pressure. It's free to spin, where this one's loaded because the truck is wanting to tip over the floor jack. Now, if you keep going like this, higher and higher, eventually that wheel's gonna completely come off the ground where you can see daylight underneath it. So this, now our floor jack's not really wanting to roll, and that hasn't slipped yet. So we could lower this. We can keep going, but also just, man, this thing's kind of stuck in there. Okay, so I went ahead and lowered that jack stand just a little bit, and we'll go ahead and lower the truck slowly right onto that jack stand. And there she goes, nice and slow. So it didn't quite sit perfectly though. It looks like the way that it's sitting, it could shift a little when you really look close. I wouldn't want it to be positioned in a way where it might settle. I want it to be really settled down. If you look in there, you can see it's not settled quite right. I want it to be settled in a way where if it's not gonna move. Let's go up a little because I got some weight on it. And I really want it to be positioned nicely. So as you can see, I've got that axle sitting right on that jack stand, right where it can be, where it won't fall down and settle and bang. Like if you put a wrench on a truck, try to loose something, and it just settles. Like it's already in its fully settled position. It's not gonna drop down or settle or make noise or creak. I got all 4 feet of the jack stand located evenly on the ground, and nothing's sketchy, nothing's tipping, and my tire is off of the ground, free to rotate. Okay, so on this side, I don't have enough room to hit the axle tube in the same spot. So where am I gonna hit? So I wanna put my floor jack here. If I hit this part, that would be an okay spot, but it would leave me with not enough room to really put the jack stand. As I move my floor jack closer to the driver's side wheel there, I have less to play with. So let's go ahead and hit our center diff. You're not gonna break this, but you might bend this cover if you were to get too close to that. In our case, ours isn't really overhanging, so. But nonetheless, we'll stay away from it. We'll kind of cradle this diff right where that is, and attempt to avoid hitting that. And we'll see, like I said, our caster wheels need to be pointed in a nice orientation to where the floor jack can roll easily. So I'll spin this caster wheel so it's pointing toward my load, and it can traverse the ground if needed. This floor jack's still old. It's time to really get a new one. But nonetheless, as we go up, the truck is rising quite easily this time compared to the last time. And we go up and up and up. Now, watching my floor jack to make sure it is not compromised. And able to rise to the occasion. It goes up. And then we come in with our jack stand. And this jack stand has pins. So, like I said, we can put our pin in here if we want. And like I said, get a jack stand that can handle. We even need a pin because we're at our lowest setting here. The other one's got the pin, so we want it to be even. So we're one notch up for the pin to fit. Enough to clear. And I want my jack stand right there, close to the wheel. It's as good as it gets. If I were on that, that'd be a good spot. Like I said, we're closer this way. That would be a good spot, but then my jack stand won't fit. And that's the biggest question is how in the heck are you lifting up the front end? Now, one thing to consider is this is not going to be what's in the manual. The manual is going to tell you probably not to hear that little chunk that wasn't settling, but that's fine. As long as it's all settled out. The manual is going to tell you not to use the front diff. They have their reasoning for saying that, and you need to kind of follow that. You can't necessarily follow like you see on a YouTube video, but this is like more real world. This is what a mechanic might be doing to your vehicle. If this is how they're working on it on the ground, they don't have a vehicle hoist, then it would be normal for them to lift the vehicle this way. Support it on the front end if you're just doing brakes or something. This would be how you'd support the front end. Floor jack, real quick, 2 points of contact to get the front end up off of the ground. And nothing was damaged, nothing was broken. So the reasoning that they have, I don't know why. I would imagine it's because you could potentially damage that cover, that front diff cover, if you were to use that point. But they have their lift points lifted. You gotta just realize that sometimes the OEM is very litigious and they're just trying to figure out the best way to cover their butts in any event. Like, they gotta be real litigious about their saying of how to do things. But it's interesting. So definitely watch out for that and how to jack up these trucks. So as you can see, both our wheels, our front tires are off of the ground. This is how it's being done. This is kind of like, you know, real world scenario. I'm going to show you, though, what I've been doing over the years, too, to kind of speed things up. Not saying to do any of this stuff. Obviously, I got to point everybody to the manual. Everybody to follow your manual and not, follow where you feel safe. You know, this is a big safety, this is a big safety area. You get real hurt. You could die. You could lose your life, you know, jacking up a truck. So I'm just showing you guys how I'm doing it and how I've, you know, been doing it. But at the end of the day, you gotta be comfortable with this. You gotta have done this. You gotta be mechanically inclined. You gotta have a good sense of what you can get away with and what you can't. So I'm gonna show you something that you're not gonna see anywhere else probably, and not a lot of places, but time is money, baby. This is how I'm gonna remove these jack stands. And I could also put these in. So if I take this floor jack and I go center of the diff, this is dangerous in itself, because now the truck is going to be completely lifted up, totally lifted up by the floor jack. There's going to be the whole engine, front of the vehicle, everything's going to be lifted up by the floor jack. The floor jack's rated for it, but she's a little bit old, so that's something to consider. Now, I'm not going to be hitting the differential where it's real thick, where the where the casting is real heavy. I'm actually just gonna barely miss this differential casing. Now, if I had a bottle jack, I'd imagine I could just hit a bottle jack right there and be maybe closer to the center, but this location right here gets pretty dang close to the center. I'm like right there by the middle of the truck. That's about the middle of the front end there. And I'm just gonna crank it right there. Let's see what happens with this and see how it goes here. All right, going up. Now, doing this, I can really feel the weight of it. But let's see if anything breaks, bends, creaks, anything. Now I can see my floor jacks rolling forward. That's good. Now, you want the floor jack to advance forward by fractions of an inch per pump, and that's letting you know that this floor jack's able to inch forward. If there's an obstruction just blocking this wheel, that could actually stop this floor jack from moving forward and cause the vehicle to slip a little bit on the jack. But this Dana, I think it's a Dana 60, don't quote me, I don't remember, but this Dana axle is so overbuilt and it can carry this. Not every truck is gonna have this level axle. Think about an Excursion. That's a heavy truck. Now think about an Excursion with the diesel. Could that axle do this? I don't know. I never really, looked into it, but it's skinnier, it's thinner, and that's still a heavy truck. So this, on this setup, can easily do this. With the proper floor jack, this is a 4-ton jack. How much is 4 tons? It's 8,000 pounds. So this floor jack is rated to almost lift the entire truck, but we're just lifting the front. Like I said, this is dangerous stuff. You could lose your life by improperly lifting a truck. I gotta flip it. You could lose your life improperly lifting a truck. Now, this way, I'm able to just handle both of these jack stands. So this is much faster, and this axle is not being phased by doing so. Now, another thing to remember, if you don't know, I'm gonna tell you now. There's a lot of components under this truck that you will not lift by. Even though they're heavy looking, this is your steering linkage. Don't lift it by this. You'll be in trouble. Definitely don't use the steering linkage. Your sway bar, just because it looks beefy, I don't think you can jack the truck up by that. I don't know. I doubt it. I think you bend it. Axle tube, as we are in the center of the axle tube, I don't believe you'll break the axle tube. But to be safe, you can do it in 2 lifts. One here, pop it here, lift it up, position your stand right there, close to the weld, close to the spring, then hit the center diff and pull your jack stand. And it's tough because your jack stands are big. You got these beefy jack stands, they got a big spread underneath them. It's hard to get it next to the floor jack. In this case, going center, this is a time thing. It saves up a lot of time because now in one lift, I can position 2 jack stands, and I can tell you that this axle is not leaking, not doing nothing. It's about as heavy as it gets. This could be a gasoline truck with the same level axle, or at least the same, generally the same thing. I mean, it's not a wide track on a 250, but they still got big Dana 60 axles. Now let's see how it looks when it goes down. It's nice to be able to take it down slow. Nice and easy. Whole front end goes down, no problem. So you guys have to do what you're comfortable with. don't, you know, want nobody to get hurt doing this. And you got to follow your owner's manuals. That's why the owner's manuals are limited, because they're litigious. They don't want to tell you to do something and then have it not work out. Some of the dangers, if you're on uneven ground, there's a danger. If you're on ground that has a lot of little rocks and stuff underneath it, cracks in the concrete, asphalt, you put this floor jack on some asphalt, it might sink on a hot day on asphalt. So that's something to think about. Type of ground that you're working on. You got to be on level, clean concrete without huge giant cracks, without rocks and grit. Even my ground, you can see this grass and stuff. It's not the best situation, but looks like a little bit of wood chips. We do landscaping, so like someone dropped some wood chips. A couple of these wood chips get right by that tire on that, or that wheel on that floor jack, and that could obscure, you know, that might, maybe not, make it hard for that wheel to roll. So make sure your floor jack's rated. This is old girl, but still a 4-ton jack, and you're looking at 450 or any Super Duty, a 4-ton would be a good place to be. I know, you know, a 3-ton will probably do it, but a 4-ton is nice to have. So consider all those things. Your axles are pretty strong. I use it. I'm not saying for you to do it, but you saw I just lifted a 450 right in the center of the diff. No issues. But use your best judgment. Consult with, you know, your mechanic. A lot of mechanics going to tell you don't do it on the center diff. That's crazy. Right in the middle, the weakest part. But comment below and let me know what you think. But anyway, my name is Sean. Just giving you guys some examples on how I lift the front end of my truck. Keyword, how I lift the front end. That's how I do it. Controversial, I know, but 2 different methods: center of the axle or go 2 lifts. Take a little more time, but works just as good. Center of the axle gives you a lot of options to really place your jack stands fast, but comment below and tell me what you guys think. But anyway, my name is Sean. This is DS Trucks. This is our 450. We did a pretty cool install from Limitless where you just press the button and we got our flashers. I wonder, what do you think if I could figure out how to isolate just the ambers if I don't want to be as freaking intrusive with these lights? Because the ambers, look how big that freaking light is. At nighttime, if you're just flashing that amber, say you're plowing snow and just flashing an amber, that thing is bright. Like, it's freaking real bright. And it's a lot bigger of an amber light than anything you could buy flush mounted to be like a warning light. And it's flashing, and you can just change the patterns and stuff. Pretty sweet. And I don't know if that messes me up to change the pattern while, no, I don't think so. I think it's fine, because if I'm changing the pattern while the other one's not energized, but I think it is energized. What happens is the truck sits for a little while and the truck turns off the C-rings, and then it's got to be turned back on in order to really work. So I can change my pattern, and it's all synced up. These 2 modules are separate, but they sync. But I have the ability to change the pattern. And then as the truck, if I want to add more modules, I can. I think I wanted the mirrors to go ahead and do it as well. So pretty cool install. Let me know what you think, or if you would like to do that to your truck. Maybe we can get together and we can set this up so that you can flash your truck too as well. Check that out. And have the ability to change the pattern. Who else can do you better than that? Oh, DS Trucks. But anyway, my name is Sean. This is DS Trucks. I'm gonna wrap this video up. See you in the next one. Over and out.